Shedd Aquarium. She oversees planning, maintenance, and development of the gardens. Charlotte prioritizes building the soil in the gardens. She is responsible for promoting conservation and environmental stewardship through educational programs. So take it away, Charlotte.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for Westcook Wild Ones for inviting me. This is really, really fun to have the opportunity to share this little micro nursery that we've created here over the last couple of years, and the lessons that we've learned, during this process. A little bit about me. I've been here at the Shedd Aquarium for coming up on 5 years, and this is my 4th year doing native plant propagation. I never had done it prior to coming here. And so there's been a big learning curve, but because of the nature of the program, it's only been 4 years, but it's been tens of thousands of plants that we have grown in our little program. It's micro, but it has it sort of kind of took on a life of its own, and part of it is because it has been so easy, and also just a lot of fun. I am going to just give you a quick little overview of what I'm going to cover, and then I'm going to try to stick to this agenda. I want to talk to you a little bit, give you a little bit of background about our Native Plant Head Start program, which is what we call this, our effort here, how that came about. Then I'm going to cover the tools that we have arrived at that work well for us. The planting mediums, there's a couple different things I want to show you about that we've tried. Then we're going to talk a little bit about seed collection. We're going to hopefully have enough time to hop out in the garden and see some seeds that are ready to go and some that aren't quite so ready, and talk a little bit about, plant choice, plant aggressiveness, the things to keep in mind, soil, light conditions, and so forth, ethical seed collection. And then I will give you a little seed tray seeding demonstration and a mini up potting demo and a plug plotting demo. I got this all laid out. And lastly, I want to touch on something that has come about as a bit of a surprise that is a little counterintuitive for a propagation program, but it's been really cool and very, very promising. So let's start by just I'm going to turn my camera around. Now you can stop looking at me and look at our little nursery here. Sorry. Here we go. All right, so you're going to see a bunch of tropical plants in here, and those are for our Amazon exhibit. So Native Plant Head Start right now is sharing space with our Amazon project indoors, which that gallery has gotten renovated in the last year, and it's gorgeous, and I hope you all get a chance to come see it sometime. So we did not grow all these ferns, but everything else that you see in plugs and trays was grown by us. Most of it was grown from seeds that we collected. So a little bit about Native Plant Head Start. So that came about when Edward Warden was here, and some of that may be a name familiar to many of you. Edward was on the Conservation Action Team, and he kind of headed up the seed collection and that conservation work that they were doing at the sites that we're involved with, and that includes 63rd Street Beach, 12th Street Beach, Bob Mann Woods, out in the suburbs, a little piece of Skokie Lagoons, and also Pingtown Park and some other places as well. And he came to us a couple years back and said, hey, we're collecting all these seeds and we're scattering them around, but it's not going as well as we'd like. Would you consider growing some stuff for us? And we were like, well, yeah, that sounds cool, but we don't have a lot of time. We have a small team, just 2 of us full time, and we got 90,000 square feet of cultivated beds that we manage, plus all the programming and stuff that goes along with being part of a big organization. And so that was a factor, time, space. We don't have a lot of space, you can kind of see the size of it. It's not a huge space. It's not bad, but it's not huge. So we learned how to just grow things up instead of, having traditional benches. money. Where's the money going to come from? That got solved pretty quick with a grant from the U.S. Forest Service, but that was another thing. And it had to be easy because, again, we don't have a lot of time. And the other thing is it had to be sustainable. And that sustainability is kind of the rudder for our program here and how we innovate. We continue to try to innovate to make it more and more sustainable every year. So just to give you an example, the first year we had a lot of single-use plastic in here where at the end of the season, it worked well to grow stuff in, but by the end of the season, we were just throwing, piles of it in the recycling, and that did not sit well with us. So, we came up with some ways to not use single-use plastics. And what you see here in front of me are some of the many different systems that we have used, and I'm going to go through them one at a time. But the big idea with the Native Plant Head Start thing is, the Conservation Action Team collects seeds out in the field. We collect seeds from our gardens, and then we grow the plants, and then they go back to where they came from, where the seeds came from. So, for example, right here, you see 63rd Street Beach. Everything in these tubes here goes to 63rd Street Beach. This is just the last of what we've got here this year. So that's the big idea. If you have any questions, more questions about it, feel free to ask at the end. And there's a little description in one of the handouts that I sent over that you can look at and learn a little bit more about the program. So that is that pretty much covers it. You'll see these big racks here. We found out that going up saved us a lot of space. And is it ideal? No, but it works. And last year we were able to crank out over 8,000 plugs using these racks and our system here. So it wasn't too shabby. It's this year we didn't actually. We were like, it was a little too good, actually. We got a little ahead of our skis last year. We had things went so well. And to wind back to sustainability, you see a lot of these wooden crates here. These are going to last us probably 10, 15 years before they can just go in the compost. So that was one of our first innovations that we made. I want to go over these different potting systems. Some of them you may be familiar with, but a lot of these I had never heard of until I started this journey. And what I discovered when I was doing my research after my abysmal first attempt with like the little ice cube trays that are like 1 inch, where you have a big stretch of plastic with maybe 100 cells that are 1 inch deep, and I didn't realize those are really meant for greenhouses, not for the kind of rough and ready nursery situation we got going here. And by the way, nothing goes in a greenhouse. Nothing gets, stratified in a bag in your refrigerator with paper towels, anything like that. We don't do any of that. We just put the stuff out here and let it rip. So in my research, I learned about these containers that are called Ray Leach cone containers. You'll see a link for them in the notes there, my sources, and I have 3 different sizes here that I've tried. Actually, this here is the first one I bought, and I wasn't too sure about it, and it's turned out it's now my most favorite system of all, and I'll tell you why. But let's start with this big guy here. These are all, by the way, for growing trees, for tree propagation, but they work great for trees. We see we got some nice oaks in here and they like it. These are a little flimsy seeming, but they actually are pretty durable. And the cool thing about this is you can see these are elevated from the ground. So there's no worry of getting invasive worms up into your pots if you're sharing your plants with someone else, if you have invasive worms on your site. And it's just a good system. This is some really durable plastic. This is the next size down. These are pretty long tubes. Not so thrilled with this system. I don't feel like the plants took off in these. I don't know why. But they grow, but it's not the huge success that I was hoping for. Versus these little guys, which are these skinny little tubes. Let me pull one out. These are actually a thicker plastic. I can tell they're gonna last a long time. That's about 6 inches deep. So you're gonna have like a 6-inch long skinny plug, and I'll pull one out, try to pull one out single-handedly here. And what you see here is the plants are kind of stunted. Look, here's a little anise hyssop that's blooming, even though at this sort of micro size. But I tell you what, when you put these things in the ground, they just take off. Let me pull one out. This is a soil, this is a mix of different seeds, a blend that I created of things that I was just interested in growing. You can see some musk and gum sedge here, all different kinds of stuff. Look, this is dry as a bone, but this plant does not seem to care. I used a lightweight potting mixture in here. That was one of the things I learned about this is you don't pack it full, you just lightly fill it, put your seeds in the top, and and then they have room to for the roots to grow. These I planted, believe it or not, like last fall or last summer, and they've just been sitting in here in this sort of stasis. And I really only water them once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, sometimes once every 3 weeks, and they do just fine. So I love this system because, again, space underneath. There's 200 cells here in this small space. That's a lot of bang for your buck. So for me, this is my favorite one. This is another system that I like a lot. These make nice big chubby plugs. These are potted up in the spring. You can see they're more than ready to go out. Also designed for trees. These you get from A.M. Leonard. These are not going to last 20 years, 15, 20 years like this. But this is year 3 or 4. And yes, some of them have given up, but I think it's still pretty good. And I think I'm going to continue to use this system, even though it's not, as durable as these. It has its uses. And when you need a bigger plant, maybe it's going into a more difficult circumstance and you want, a bigger plant, this system is going to be really good. And these are called sure roots. Easy to find on the internet. This is another system I got from the same place. I don't know what it's called. I got it from the same place as I got the other Ray Leach containers, and I don't love it. I just didn't think the plants did fabulously well in there. These get really hot for some reason. These heat up, and I don't know. I also didn't really love the size for us. It's nice if you, for example, these things can get really heavy. So if weight is an issue, these could be really, really nice from that standpoint. Or, if you have a smaller, you're not trying to grow as many things as we're trying to grow here. I mean, it's okay. And again, this is like really durable plastic. So it's not horrible. It just not my favorite. I'm not going to ignore. All right. Sorry about that. I have no idea what happened. I'm going to guess I got cut off right around here. So we'll zip through the rest of these things. I was talking about this, I think, when I left. It's not my favorite system, but it comes from the same place that I got the other Ray Leach things over there. So next is these by accident, and they actually turned out okay. I don't think I'd buy them again, but these are little quart trays. They've done fine. They're convenient because you can move this many things at once and you don't have a tray underneath. They're okay. I would not get them back because they're not up too well. This is what happens when you have a very high germination rate. So this is, I just have never seen so many penstemon come up like this, but I put a few too many in this tray. You'll notice that I have 2 markers in each. Ooh, whoa, lost my balance there. 2 markers in each thing, and that's because we tend to lose, you lose things. Sometimes I even put 3, lay one on top and I tuck that in, but So these wooden trays, by the way, we really love these a lot. They hold moisture in really well. And we just built them in our shop in-house. We put these little, Julie, my partner in crime here, designed these and has these little grippy things on the edge, and they're just really great. We did a deeper one over there. You can see those because I was like, well, maybe we won't have to water those as much. This is true, but they're incredibly heavy, so we
Hey,
won't be
Charlotte,
making more of
Charlotte,
those. But yeah,
Charlotte, could you please
yes.
share your screen?
Oh, I should be sharing. You can't see what I'm seeing.
We can, but it's not any larger. I will try spotlighting you.
Try the spotlight again.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, share screen. I just shared the screen.
Okay. All right, let me just.
I think that I'm not sure that's what you really want.
There
Oh,
you go.
yay. That looks good.
Oh, now it stopped again.
Are we getting thumbs up?
There.
That looks good on my end. I can see everything pretty good on my end. Does that sound
Yeah,
good on
no,
yours?
that looks good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So anyway, that's the story of these wooden trays. Is just pine from Menards, and then you see the ones over there. Our first year, we learned that in real nurseries, they grow things in flats. So we used some of these things that we had hanging around, and then we actually bought more. They have drainage in it. We put the soil in here and laid the seeds out, and it was okay. But you can see these are really flimsy. They don't hold up in the sun. So we abandoned that system for this durable system. Here's a plug tray we did not buy. This came from Possibility Place. And I really don't like this one at all because it's great if you have someone to water it every single day. But because this has these air pruning pockets, the theory is, it's going to make great roots. That might be true, but only if you water it all the time. So I'm not a fan. I did this at home, and yeah, we've got some okay roots on here, but I don't think they're any better than what I get in my other kinds of plug trays. So not a fan of this one, and also not going to last very long. This is a super cool system, I think, for like a home gardener. And you can get this again at the same place Stewie and Sons is what it's called, where I got the other Ray Leach things. This is called their little book system. And I didn't use it this year, but I used it last year. It's incredible. The plants grow straight down. You don't get any turning roots. You can very easily open it up to see, if it's ready to go out into the field. It's just kind of fun. It's sort of a novelty, but I didn't think it was going to be durable enough for us and for working with volunteers. So that's all the different systems that we've tried. Just to recap, this is my favorite right here, in combination with this, which is a compromise. But these two both work really well, and part of it is I just like multiples of 25. Alrighty. So next, we lost a little time with the technical difficulty, so I'm just gonna hop over here to tools that we use. We've got this is for seed sorting. You've seen it before. Sorry. Woohoo. So just various stuff, mostly that I get at the thrift store. I love using this white tray so I can kind of see what I'm looking at. And I forgot to bring out, I also have like a little magnifying glass or loop, because sometimes I don't know what the seed looks like that I'm trying to get. And with all the, other stuff that comes with it, it's good to kind of know what I'm looking for. So a lot of times I'll be looking real close at it with the magnifying glass to see what I got here. I often will just use a big bucket like this. This is some purple love grass, and the way I'll separate a seed like this is I'll take this stuff and rub it between my hands back and forth, kind of can't do it one-handed, but just kind of rub it back and forth like this between my hands. And then down at the bottom you can see all this stuff and teeny tiny seeds down low. I don't know if I put my camera up really close. You can see these super tiny little seeds that are the purple lovegrass seeds. And those, we've had fabulous luck with those germinating. So this is just a quick look at our seed sorting stuff. But honestly, we don't do a whole heck of a lot. It doesn't, you know, we're not selling them, so they don't have to look pretty. And that goes for everything in this nursery. Planting mediums is next. I'm going to show you two things here. This is what we mainly use. This is an organic garden mix from Midwest Trading, and it's pretty good. It's sort of an all-around good mix. You know, it's, you can look it up online to see all the ingredients, but it works fine. It's not as nice as a, you know, premium seed starting mix, but that's like 100% peat moss, and we just kind of want to stay away from that. We are experimenting with this stuff here, which is a proprietary mix that we had made for indoor stuff, but it turns out it's really great for growing stuff in pots. Let me give you a little example over here of some campanula I put in that mix, maybe 3-4 weeks ago in a gallon pot. I put too little. These were teeny tiny. And I'm going to put my phone down for a second so I can pull this out, or maybe I can just pull it out. So check these roots out. That's after about, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks in that very sharply draining mixture that's probably best for like orchids, but it turns out it's pretty good for growing other stuff in. And I'm going to do a side-by-side right here with the organic garden mix here and this proprietary mix from, but it's equivalent to like an orchid mix or tropical plant mix. Actually, we had it made for the Amazon exhibit. And I'm just trying it out with other stuff because I think it's cool. So we'll do a side-by-side and see how they compare. So that is our planting mediums, but we don't use a lot of fancy planting mediums. Sometimes we will screen that garden mix so that, you know, if we're doing a real tiny seed like that purple loggrass seed I just showed you. All right, well, that's pretty much it on sort of just like the tools of our little trade here. Now we're going to run out to all right. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I thought I was driving. I'm going to turn my camera around again. And we're going to go out into the garden here. Let's see. Turn around. All right. So we are now in the migratory bird garden. And the point of coming out here is to talk a little bit about aggressive plants. Actually, this is a medium aggressive plant. It's not too bad. This is all right. Well, we're back in the nursery. I did my best to take you guys out to migratory bird garden, but the connection failed. So what I did is I picked up a few things out there that looked okay. And one was, let me turn my camera around. One was some silphium, prairie dock, silphium terebinthinaceum. And the other, which I'm mixing up here with all these guys, was one of my favorites, which is Silene regia, royal catchfly. And that's what this looks like. You can see why I like to use these white trays, because you can really see what you got. So when I'm seed collecting, I usually take some lunch bags, brown paper bags, and I would stick in that bag upside down. And usually I let it kind of dry out for a couple days before I get the seeds out of it. Now these guys are the Silphium terebinthinaceum ones, the prairie dock, and you can kind of see how the sunflower-like seeds are on the outside. A lot of these are going to be bad. That was a good one. You can see I just squished out the living part in there. But I do sort through these carefully. I don't just willy-nilly plant these. I can tell by feeling it that this is a viable seed, and I'll just put that right into its own little cell to grow. So what I was saying when I got interrupted by the connection loss was, when you're choosing your seeds, you really want to be careful about the degree of aggressiveness of the plant. And the way you figure that out is either just by looking at how it's growing in nature and do your homework. And it's just part of the joy of, learning about these plants and growing them is sort of to get to know their personalities and their communities. And so I kind of do think of them as characters. And, we really do consider the plant communities that these plants come from and are going back into when we grow them. So, I'll collect all these guys. I'll put them in one of my we use a lot of these coin envelopes like this for storage. And I will put the location, date, name on it, and then that'll all get it for us entered into a spreadsheet so we can keep track from year to year. So those all look like some really good seeds. So that's what I have to say about that. It's really, really important though to consider, your plant aggressiveness when you're choosing stuff. So, and let's touch on ethical seed collection. We don't want to be taking things from natural areas without permission. We don't want to be taking things from other people's property. And that's why it's good to, use a reputable seed purveyor. And then when you get something growing in your garden, you can collect from there and share with your friends or your community that way. So we're just blessed that we have access to these seeds through our conservation action, and we get to learn about them in that way. But most of the things you see here are things that we bought the seeds for because we wanted to try new things and introduce more diversity to our gardens. But you can see not everything grows great here. Here's a tray that just dried out and just didn't make it, but most of the things in here do pretty well. So that is about all I have to say right now about seed selection and collection. Oh yeah, of course you want to, make sure that you're getting things in a height that's going to work for you as well. All right. So how are we doing on time? Ooh, got to run. The next thing I wanted to do was a quick seed just basically how we go about putting things in our trays for the fall and winter. We will do this mainly in between Thanksgiving and Christmas into January. We didn't want this in that mix. So this is a mix of seeds, blend of seeds that we got from 12th Street Beach and around there that we're allowed to use for 12th Street Beach. And you can see, there's like mint in here and all kinds of stuff, not highly processed. What I'm going to do with this stuff is, kind of work it in my hand a little bit. That's about it. And then I'm going to sprinkle this on here like this. And probably a lot of this seed mix I will go put directly into plug trays. But we like to grow things 2 or three different ways every year. We'll grow things in a flat, we'll grow it in a pot, and we just try to figure out, that's how we learn what it likes best. So that's about right. I'm gonna smush it down, mix it in a little bit. Some of it's gonna be showing. And then probably what I'll do on this one is screen a little bit of fine soil on top using one of those little screeds. I might give it that much extra love. But this will grow really well, just with the little processing that you see here. And there's probably 10 different species of plants in this mix. I do have it written down, but not in my head. So that's a quick demonstration on just basically, and then this is going to sit outside all winter long, and then we'll come out here once a week and keep our fingers crossed and get all excited when things start to sprout. One thing you don't want to do if you go this wooden box route, don't make the mistake that we did, which was just stack them all up because it looks nice and neat. We had a little bit of mold problem with that, so that was a bummer. And the things that got moldy didn't germinate so well, so we don't do that anymore. We do stack them, but we stagger them so they get air circulation. So now for a little up-potting demo. Remember these guys over here, the Winston that were just a little too densely planted. By the way, favorite tool, steak knife, cheap steak knife. I love it for up potting. And let's see how well I can do this single-handedly. So I usually just kind of take a clump usually, and I'm not too gentle with these guys. I'll take them right down to the root like that, and I make a little pocket. And by the way, I didn't pack the soil in. I learned that that doesn't work too well for me. I just put it in there very lightly, and that way the roots have more room to grow. And that's really about it. You can see I'm careful not to plant it too deep. Make sure it has good contact. And important to note, this is wet, and this has also been pre-watered. And that's about it. But I go right down, take it right down to bare root. I just now these I could put two in a thing, but these are going to get very big very fast in here just with one little plant. There must be like thousands in here. But anyway, whatever I don't up pot, I'm just going to take clumps of this stuff and plant it as is out in the field, and they can just duke it out there. So steak knives. So that's my up potting demo. Now we're going to run around the corner out here and do a plug planting demo, because I think that's worth talking about. And I want to show you, I'm not a power tool person, but I happen to really love this tool. This is a wonderful auger made by Power Planter here in Illinois. And they sell these kits with these great DeWalt drills, and you can drill hundreds and hundreds of holes on one battery, and it's really great if you have a lot going on. A lot of plugs going in at once. So I've shared this information with a lot of different people, and they're really great, especially if you're doing like forest preserve stuff or whatever. So what I recommend people do is this was super dry when I put it in here, and plant didn't care, but before I put it in the ground, I want to really make sure it's good and hydrated, and I'll loosen it up a little bit, but not too much. I mean, really, they're not too picky. I love this product, Maxi Crop. I don't know. It's just a seaweed powder. It helps with getting things established. So, before we started, I came out here and drilled a hole. You can see it's super dry. You do not want to be planting a plug into a bone dry hole, and it's a lot easier to water it up front. So you water that thing up front and watch that. Ooh, we got some pretty good drainage here, but you want to plant into a nice saturated hole rather than putting your plug in and planting later. So now I'm going to one-handed plug in here. It's pretty deep. It's just right. And the one thing I like about this is from one of those 50s, the square pots, those sure root pots. It's square, and that means that when I do a nice round hole, you have nice big spaces around the edges. So that's a bonus as far as I'm concerned. So going to fill this in. And this thing's going to just take off. You don't want to plant it too deeper than it was in the plug tray. So you can see this is well exposed, the crown of the plants in here. And because it is so dry, I'm going to baby this and give it a little extra, but it probably doesn't need it. And so that is my plug plant tank demo. And the last thing I wanted to share with you guys is this little thing going on in this enclosure here. Because of our need and desire to be as sustainable as possible, we wondered what would happen if we made seed balls and we planted them, cutting out the step in the nursery of growing them in trays and then putting them into bigger pots, and then, you know, watering for, you know, weeks on end, maybe months on end, and then planting those plugs out in the field. We know that works. We have very, very high success rate with that. But what would happen if we made seed balls and we planted those? So you saw that hole I just made like this. We fill that back up and we put a seed ball on the top and we cover it, right? So it's just under the soil surface. And this is the result of the seed balls planted in the ground. You can see milkweed coming up here and all kinds of you know, grassy stuff. Can't remember what's in this mix, probably a little blue stem or side oats. 100% success rate over here. You know, some are doing better than others, but 100%. Now, over here we have our seed bomb model where you just take your little seed ball and you throw it. Yeah, sure. There's some germination, a little bit, but nothing compared to what we have going on here where it's planted. So it's sort of like, it's a very deliberate way of using the seed ball idea, but actually just putting it in the ground and treating and letting kind of nature do all the work. Okay, so we're having a little mini drought right now, so we cheated, and we've been watering this because we're mimicking nature, but we actually did this experiment out in the field. We made over 3,000 of these seed balls and planted them. Actually, Conservation Action planted them at all the different conservation sites that we have. And we're collecting the data on that, but we wanted to just do a little focused example of that here. So I'm gonna go back to the nursery and show you what the seed balls look like. And I think we're close to out of time, but I brought an example. So here are seed balls that you can see here. These are made for 12 feet deep. There's 25 in this bag, and these will get planted this fall. We use a red clay like this, potting soil like that over there, and we mix our seed salad into it, add a little water, and you basically, it's like making cookie doughs. So that's all I got. I have to tell you that I'm super, super excited about our seed balls. It is a way for us to make our nursery more sustainable, and using all the things that we learned in our nursery to sort of almost cut the nursery out sometimes when it makes sense. By the way, this is a seed ball planted in a plug tray. So we did test the seed balls in the nursery just to make sure the seeds were viable. All right. I'm going to turn the camera back around. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I hope that most of what I had to say came through. I'm ready for any questions if anybody has any.
Charlotte, thank you. That was really interesting. And thank you everyone for your patience. Charlotte, thanks for repeatedly zooming back in.
So if you have questions, please type them into the chat. And I actually have two questions. When you say you just leave your seeds out all winter, which I also do, how do you protect them from mice or birds?
We just don't. we stacked those wooden trays. We kind of stack them loosely so they're partially protected, but with air. So we kind of stack them like bricks, but spread out. And we have had some problems with birds. We don't have any problems with mice, probably because we're on the racks. And we have a nursery bunny that created a little bit of trouble. We actually have more problem with birds in the spring when things sprout, and sometimes it's kind of devastating. And then we put milk crates over those pots. We just use milk crates to keep the birds off.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. And then my other question is, do you have a recipe for your seed balls?
Oh, it's just kind of loose. It's sort of like 50-50 clay and potting soil.
Okay.
Sort of. I mean, and then if you feel like, oh, it's not holding together, you add a little more clay. It's kind of just by feel, to be honest. It's pretty forgiving. You just want it to be just enough that it holds together. You don't want it hard as a rock.
Right.
When it dries. And then when we make them, we dry them out, and we dry them, put a fan on them, make sure they're really, really, really dry. And then we put them in bags, and we actually do store those outside. So we make the seed balls over the winter, and then, they go in a big Tupperware out here in the outdoor area. So they get some cold. I don't know if it helps them or not, but it seemed to not hurt them anyway.
Okay, great. I'm going to experiment with that myself.
Yeah, that looks like fun, actually.
So we have, okay, so someone is asking, how do you water your trays, bottom or top? And someone else would like you to give a demonstration of the stacked trays.
So wait, what was the first question about the trays?
How do you water your trays, bottom or top?
Water?
Yeah.
Oh, usually top, but if it gets really dried out, then I'll put a tray underneath. Like over here, you can see some things have a tray underneath. Sometimes I water them from the bottom. So we usually just water from the top, but I think probably watering from the bottom is better. Because, if they do get really dried out, then it just kind of runs right through, and you find that if you double check, you see that it hasn't really gotten water all the way through. So I actually think watering from the bottom is preferable. All right, let me turn this around. Okay, so when I say stack these wooden trays, I mean like this. Does this make sense to people? Kind of.
Yep. Okay.
Like that. So you have air and space. I haven't had too much of a problem with birds here, and definitely not a problem with mice.
It'd be pretty hard well, I guess birds are small, but they're not super accessible.
Yeah, no, they come in, and they have created havoc sometimes, but not too much. And it's usually specific things they want. Like they want to eat all your ceanothus in one day. That was a bummer. But yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, anybody, come on.
So I was wanting to ask about your seed shed, because Adrian has talked a little bit about that in regards to the forest preserve and which areas can share with each other and which cannot. And does the shed follow a similar protocol as to the forest preserve?
So we follow the protocol of whatever site that we're working on. So the forest preserves, they make the rules and we follow them. So for example, Bobman Woods, we can collect seeds there, and then we can grow them here, and then we can plant them back there. But we can't take things from Bobman and plant them at Skokie Lagoon, or vice versa. However, City of Chicago, you can plant things from 63rd Street Beach at 12th Street Beach. So, the rules are different, but we follow them, and we track everything here, in the nursery, and we know what goes where and what doesn't go where.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, it can feel kind kind of strict sometimes, but I understand why they do it that way.
You mean in the
Right.
forest preserve it can feel strict, or?
At the preserve, yeah, it can be
Yeah.
quite strict. But you know, you follow the rules and
Yeah, I mean, if you look around there, you know, we have a big enough area that we find enough stuff to make it worthwhile, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's not that hard, you know. We just play by the rules, and it makes for a little extra paperwork on our end, and you know, record keeping, but you know, it's not onerous.
Right. So anybody else? Any questions? There's
Marcia
expert
asked,
here.
oh, Marcia asked, what are some of the aggressive plants you avoid planting?
Well, a lot of the asters, there's good asters, you know, um, and but yeah, asters are a tough one. You have to be just really careful. I mean, some are, you know, easy to work with, but they're, you know, maybe they're really, really tall, but actually most of the asters are reseed pretty well. Zigzag aster being an exception, in my experience. You know, I haven't grown like a zillion different asters, but you know, I just look around me and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm not going to be propagating those in my nursery. I don't need to, because they do just fine on their own. You know, but goldenrods, you know, there's really aggressive goldenrods, you know, like the tall goldenrod, canic goldenrod, but then, you know, you've got like other ones, you know, field goldenrod, showy goldenrod, blue stem goldenrod, you know, that are just lovely and easy to work with, and, you know, provide the same ecological value without taking over the world, you know. So, you know, we just sort of get familiar with our different things, and but those are the ones I'm favoring for propagating for at least a Shedd Aquarium, you know, because they're easier to manage than the ones that just kind of, you know, volunteered themselves.
Yeah, we have enough Canada goldenrod. I feel.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's just, the thing is that it just chokes out everything else, and you actually lose diversity, you know, and that's the thing. But in some places, I just let it win because it does such a fantastic job of what it's doing. You know, I just don't try to eradicate it everywhere. You know, some places it's just got to win. It's all right.
Yeah.
But
We've got some more questions. Blake would like to know, can we seed our natives this fall, even after frost?
I think that's a really great time to seed. You know, I don't think you want to be putting in like young, really, really young plants, although they get to work really fast with setting down their roots. But I think so. Yes, I'm going to be doing that. And here's the deal. You know, even if the books say, oh, maybe that's not such a good idea, I try it anyway, because I found that, you know, sometimes learn something. For example, here's a good example here. Here's some Dischampsia seeds that are supposedly need stratification. You have to look at the books, but I collected these, like, what does it say? 8/12. So like about a month ago, and I put them in here, and here they are, just growing very, very happy, and they sprouted up in about 6 days, and with no stratification whatsoever. So and my point being that it's fine to just try things. If you're not sure, just give it a shot. And if you're really not sure, then what I like to do is just bracket things, you know, plant some in November, and then, you know, plant some in March or whatever. But my general rule of thumb is whatever it does in nature works, is what I kind of try to model. So if the seeds are dropping on the ground in November, it must be a good time to plant the seeds. If the seeds are hanging on the plant till spring, well, maybe spring's a better time. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how I go about it. I just sort of look at what the plant's doing and then kind of mimic it here in the nursery.
Yeah, or you could, I suppose you could just, you know, so many seeds need that cold period of winter that if you you do plant them out in December, say, or
I
February.
don't think you can go wrong. You
Yeah.
know, the only bad thing would be if you planted them too early, you know, you gave them too much of an edge and then they sprouted and didn't have enough time to get established before the ground froze, and then they might not make it.
Mhm.
So that's why, you know, people do snow seeding. You know, they plant, they scatter stuff on the snow, and you know, and then the snow draws down and draws it into the ground, you know, when it melts. And I personally haven't tried that, but I bet it works pretty well.
Yeah, I've done
Um,
that actually quite a bit. What
yeah,
we do
I mean, I've
is
done in my, yeah.
we
Um,
we clean the seeds in November, and then we take them out, and yeah, when it snows or just before it snows, just after
yeah,
it snows.
that seems about right to me.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but like, you know, I did some late fall seeding of side oats, and it was not very successful. And then I did a spring seeding of side oat seed balls planted, and they did really well. So, you know, part of it is just been giving yourself permission to just experiment with stuff and um figure out yourself what works. But I like the idea of doing it sort of when after it gets really cold, you know, putting those seeds out there so they don't break dormancy too soon, you know, if they're inclined to.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Anthony would like to know, how do you determine if some seeds need to be scarified? And how would you do it?
So that you kind of learn, you could just learn just through trial and error, but usually there there are things in the pea fam and legumes. And you know, if you research the seeds, you know, they'll tell you, oh, it likes to be scarified. And to tell you the truth, I mean, I do look up, especially if I've never grown something before. I look up and hear, you know, see what the recommended treatment is. So, and then it's just usually a matter of running it over some, I usually use like a wet, dry sandpaper, something really gentle, and just very carefully, you know, put the seeds on top of it, and then just kind of run the paper over it, top and bottom, kind of just roll the seeds between it a little bit. But usually it's things in the family. But sometimes I will tell you that sometimes just pouring boiling water on them, if they have a really tough seed coat, and just letting it cool, that does just as good a job or better. I've done that with Baptisia, for example, and it works incredibly well. Or just leaving it in water and putting it in your fridge. Sometimes I've done that too, you know, I've like put the hot water on. But that, you know, you will get a higher germination rate for sure with those tough seed coats if you do that extra step.
Yeah, that works really well. I just actually fermented some cherry seeds, so and then planted them. So we'll see how that.
I do that too with like apples and berries. I usually put them in a bag and let them rot and get really icky, you know, because I figured that's probably what it happens in nature too, you know. So again, I just, you know, I'll just put it in a bag until it gets really, really gross looking, and then I'll put it in a pot.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Have you planted seeds that are supposed to need a warm then cold then warm period, or cold then warm then cold? You know, double stratification. Have you done that?
Yes, yes, I have, and I so far, oh, I think I've only had tried it and I've been mostly failed, to be honest. I had a little luck with the irises, but that's not, see, that doesn't fit our easy model. So I don't do it too much. I'll do it. What I'll do is I'll put it in a pot and I'll put it outside and I'll mark it that, you know, this is going to take 2 years. But so far I haven't had any luck with that. But that, you know, I'll keep trying.
Yeah. I tried, and actually it partially worked. In the fridge, over the stove, back in the fridge. And some things my wafer ash did work, but the bladder nuts did not. So.
Oh, I'm jealous. I did try that. I did do my very best with the wafer ash, but I failed.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I would-
succeeded.
I definitely tried that.
I would not say you failed. I would say they decided not to. go
Yeah,
on.
That's
no, I
right. Yeah.
didn't work out that time.
I had a wafer ash succeed, but then I subsequently killed it. But I've also had success with Dutchman's britches just under an oak. And I got little
Oh,
scraps,
nice.
just two seasons. It took 2 years, but
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Okay, so
patience is the biggest key.
yeah. And patience is so hard because you want the plants now. At least I would.
Right.
um,
Just try, Penstemon digitalis. You guaranteed to grow.
Yeah.
It's such a great plant too.
yeah, it is. Okay, another question. Could we freeze or refrigerate our seeds to keep them moist till we scatter them in the
So the people at Prairie Moon, when I asked them, should I freeze or refrigerate my seed, they said, don't freeze your seeds. So that's what they said. So they said refrigerate. I don't think refrigerating is going to hurt them at all. So I will tell you that I keep most of our seeds in the refrigerator most of the time. Just because that's what Prairie Moon told me, and it seems to be working. So yeah, I think it's a fine idea. But at the same time, I think if you collect them now and then you're gonna spread them in 2 months, it probably doesn't matter that much.
So Charlotte, when you say
But
you
it won't.
refrigerate, when you say you refrigerate them, you mean between collection and actual planting? Is that the time
Yeah,
you
for
refrigerate them?
storage,
Okay.
for storage, because sometimes
Yeah.
we don't use up all the seeds, and now I've got extra seeds, and they live in the fridge in all their little envelopes.
So when we spoke on Thursday or Thursday,
Yeah.
you mentioned something that I found very interesting, and I was hoping you'd share with others about purple prairie clover and seeding it with a grass.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I didn't get into this whole notion of plant mixes, like you see here, it's a blend of seeds, over here. This probably's got some purple prairie clover. I have a hard time saying that fast. I know it's got some amorpha in there. So the idea, what we found is like this amorpha, you see this?
Mhm.
This is growing really good in this jammed up pot here with all these grasses. Look at the size of this thing, okay? That's like what, maybe 4 or 5 inches tall. And let me show you an amorpha growing in a flat. That's been growing not even as longer actually. Okay, it's pretty similar, but actually it's not quite as big. Look how puny these are.
Yeah.
So we have this notion that, some things really like to grow with their friends in their community. And what I like about growing the little plant communities in the plug trays is that, especially if you're working with a bunch of volunteers and people who maybe not have a whole lot of plant savvy, something is going to grow no matter where they plant it, and it's going to have their friends with them, So this is just like a little prairie in a plug tray right here. Like there's all these different kind of little forbs in here that are loving growing with all these graminoids. So that's kind of, it's just a theory, but it works on for us on a whole bunch of levels. Show you again from the side here. Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, good. Are seeds kept on the racks at all during the winter too? Does that get too cold? The flats are going to be planted before.
Oh,
winter?
no. No, they all live out here, the longer the better, all winter. So the goal is to get all our seeds into trays by the first week in January, and then they just live out here all winter. The longer the better. So, and exposed to the elements just like they would be if they fell on the ground, down at 63rd Street Beach or in our garden. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's quite
but we
different.
don't worry about, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's quite different from if you're trying to do vegetables or annuals or
Oh,
other
right.
kinds of plants. Yeah.
No, so those the annuals and stuff like that gets grown in a greenhouse situation, but all the native plants, all out here. Yep.
Do you do any native annuals?
They just grow on their own, and we have this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we don't have to. Yeah, they just kind of do. There's this one little one at, it's a helenium that's really cute. You probably know it. I forget the name of it, but it's really cute. It's only like 6 inches tall, and it's very showy, and it just kind of, crops up where it wants to in our dune plantings. And I don't know where it came from. I don't think we planted it, but there's a bunch of little annuals, and then there's the biennials, like fleabane and stuff, which I have a love-hate relationship with it. Mostly I love it, but sometimes it gets too aggressive.
Yes.
But it's so good for the bees that it's hard to get mad at it,
Yeah.
Especially when there's not that much else going on. But so we have a relationship.
Yes. Anyone who lets Daisy fleabane into their yard is gonna
I know.
have
It's like, I don't like to think of it as a weed, because it does such an incredible job, especially with the really, really small wasps and bees. But so yeah, but we're negotiating right now.
Here's a follow-up. The same person wanted to know. She said she thought that the ground or under the snow was warmer. That is for the seeds. So maybe you could explain a little bit about cold stratification or the necessity of cold weather for.
I mean, seeds are programmed to break dormancy when the time is right for them to grow. That's the way I understand it. And so some need to be cold for a month. Some need to be cold for 3 months. Some don't need to be cold at all. A lot of smooth blue aster, for example, doesn't need no stratification, which is probably helps it, with its goal of taking over the world. But that's the whole point. I haven't noticed a problem not having it like under snow, and it probably is a little warmer underneath there, but as far as our model goes, is we just put it out here and it gets what it gets, and it's not getting a lot of extra protection. So we might not get as high a germination rate as maybe we would on some things if they did have snow cover, but we can't really mimic that out here. I mean, they do get some snow on them, but it's not the same as getting, being insulated like the snow would do. Yeah.
And gosh, it depends on the winter, right? I mean, last year there was no snow cover.
There was hardly any snow, right? So, but yeah. So the thing is, my feeling about the native plants is they really, really, really want to grow, and they just, we're just trying to give them a little nudge, give them a slight advantage in the nursery, but just slight. We're not growing them in a greenhouse and creating plants that are used to getting a lot of extra care. It's we're trying to grow plants that are resilient and don't take a lot of work to grow or to maintain once they get in the ground, to get them going. And I will tell you just that oh gosh, we've got some honking going on, that I can find one of my plugs out here in a unirrigated area of the garden and water it in once, and it's going to do fine. That's it. And not ever touch it with water again the entire rest of the season. I can plant it in the middle of July in a dry area, as long as I use that method that I showed you, where you make sure it's hydrated and you put it into a hole and you water it in. It's going to do fine. It will live.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
That's what we're trying to achieve here.
I spend a lot of time hand watering our new plants, so that's something to think about.
I don't know. You get these long, deep plugs, and it really, that's it. That's just been my experience.
Yeah, no, I like that. I want to.
But they've been so yeah, I mean, most of the time they're dry. These plugs are dry. They're not wet all the time. So they're used to it. And they just kind of, they have to get really dry for days and days, weeks on end. And the soil 6 inches down is never that dry. There's always a little bit of moisture in there. So that's our experience.
Interesting.
Yeah, deep plugs.
Yeah, it's
Good
awesome.
idea.
Deep plug. That's why I love that little system with the 6 inch deep plugs. Those things are amazing. And
Yeah.
they don't look like, wow, what an incredible plug. But I'm telling you, you put that in the ground and it takes off like nobody's business.
Which one is that called again?
That's the Ray Leach. It's the 200. There's 200 tubes in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are separate tubes. Oh yeah. Okay.
They're separate tubes. Yeah. So that was like one of the things that we were worried about and why we didn't go for it right away is because, these can get lost, but they're also replaceable. That's the one thing is if they go out into the field, how many of those tubes are you going to get back? But I think it's worth it. Worth the risk of losing.
So with those tubes, Charlotte, does the foliage ever get so tall or dense that you need to trim it when you plant it, or do you just always plant it as is?
Just as is.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, because the thing is the plants get to a point and then they stop growing. So you don't end up having like huge overgrowth. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because they're starved. They want to go in the ground so that they can, they're just waiting. Do you know how like in the forest, you can have like an 80-year-old oak tree that's really small underneath a giant oak tree, or even 100-year-old, but it's not big, waiting and waiting. That's what these plants are doing. They're just waiting for the right conditions, and then they're going to take off.
Interesting. I think the nurseries could learn a lot from you, because when we do our yearly plant sale, a lot of the plants come in trimmed. So just an interesting difference.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't see then my plant's gonna be working on putting out a new top. Part of that is because they want it to look nice the next growth, like it gets shabby looking, they're gonna cut it off.
Right.
That might be part of it. But yeah, I can't imagine cutting all that hard work off. It takes care of it itself. If it doesn't want it on there, it'll die back. Like this Silene Regias right here. These got way too dry. These are from last year. And they totally dried back. They died back. I thought they were dead. And they just trimmed themselves. And there's these big, fat, juicy roots in here. So these are going to be fabulous plants next year. But, it pruned itself. I don't know. I just kind of let them do what they want. Again, but that's more time that I don't have to do it. So
yeah, right. I like it. I like your approach. It's very manageable for the home gardener.
I think so. I think that, just remember that you're growing it for you, not for sale, and that it doesn't have to be perfect or uniform or beautiful in its pot. It just has to have good roots. That's the main thing. And then get it off to a good start when you plant it, do it right, and put it in the right spot, or what you think is the right spot. And you can even put it in the wrong spot, and sometimes the wrong spot turns out to be the right spot, and you didn't know that until you tried it. So that's why I don't worry too much about when volunteers come and put it in a place that I wouldn't ever have put it, because I often find out that, wow, it actually grew in a place I never thought it would grow. So that's another thing. It's just feel free to experiment and test the boundaries of the plant and your knowledge all the time, and just be curious and follow your curiosity, because it'll take you really interesting places.
That's a great
like our seed balls. That's been super fun. It gives us way more ability to get more and more and more plants out there with less space.
Yeah, you just throw them out there. That's so funny. You don't even bury them, you just roll them on. Okay.
No, don't do that. definitely bury them.
What? Don't do that.
But
What?
that's what I'm saying though. It just gives us, don't throw seed balls out there. Definitely bury them.
There
Very
we
good. Okay, good to know.
go. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, we lost her. We have two more questions. Oh
So Judy, I think she said the soil mix comes from, it's the soil division,
Midwest Trading.
Midwest ground covers, yeah.
Yeah, Midwest Trading.
no. Okay. And what's in the proprietary potting mix, if you don't mind
Oh,
sharing?
that was a mix we had made. That's got pine bark chunks in it. It's got some peat moss in it. It's got expanded clay, sand, mycorrhizal fungi, nutrient packet, and sort of really kind of 3/8 minus pine fines. So it's heavy. It's very acidic, piney mix, and it's really great. Stuff really likes it, and it's been very good for our tropicals. But turns out it's really good for other stuff too.
Interesting.
I got the idea of planting perennials in it when my former intern, who's an arborist, told me that he was growing his oaks in a cactus mix, and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, and look at mine; they're like twice as good as yours." And so, I switched over my oaks to that mixture too. So next year I'm going to grow my oaks in the sharp draining acidic mix because his looked so amazing. Trying it, his version of it, but it's basically, kind of like an orchid mix almost. Orchid or tropical mix.
That is interesting because
I know.
Because I immediately think, okay, black oaks, sure, but swamp whites? I'll have to think about that. That's really interesting.
I don't know which species, did better, but his oaks were amazing. I mean, they had like 2 new sets of leaves on them as opposed to the one of mine, so I don't know, but you just gotta try this stuff out and see what works, yeah, that's one advantage of not knowing what you're doing is you're not worrying about doing it wrong, you just try things.
Yeah.
Well, and for the homeowner, it's all small scale. So,
right,
you're not like wasting a ton of money. You're just trying different things. And
yes I think that, at least 10% of what you're doing, at least 10% should just be winging it, trying something brand new. At least 10%.
Charlotte's 10% rule, we can call that.
yeah, right.
At least 10%. I know more. I'm
At
like
least
25%.
10%.
I'm a high risk person.
I don't see any other questions. Do you, Adrian?
No, this has been really fun. And
Yeah, Charlotte, thank you. This was really fun. I agree.
I'm sorry about all the technical things. It's so weird. We had no problems the other day at all.
Yeah.
And who knows? It could be our satellite or something, or our tower, or who knows.
Yeah.
But
Hard to know,
anyway.
oh, here's a lovely comment. Despite the technical difficulties, I enjoyed the presentation. It was very informative. In the past, I could not grow a seed to save my life, but now give growing my own seeds another try. Thank you.
Well, I recommend trying some Penstemon digitalis, foxglove penstemon. I think you're gonna have some really good luck. But yeah, just go for anything in the Asteraceae family, and you're gonna do great. That's what I did my first year because I was like, I don't want this to fail, so I grew things that I knew were gonna grow, and that's how we got 3,000 or something plugs the first year. But then I broadened the palette, shall we say, and I know, I think usually we get about 75% success rate. Our second year we got 95% success rate. We just had beginner's luck. But I like to tell people too, all the failures are successes too. You tried, it didn't work. Maybe you learn more from that doesn't work out than what does work out a lot of times. And, just don't be deterred by the failures, just try it a little differently next time. and I keep track of all the failures because it's also a testimony to how hard we're trying. And, so we get some credit for that.
Well, I think it's time to close it up.
All right.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. It was great.
You're welcome.
Learn all of
Anytime.
this.
Yeah, well, if there's any follow-up questions, people can just email me.
Okay, thank you.
All
for that.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.